Well, big news coming in from West Asia right now. Lebanon-based Hezbollah group has announced large-scale rocket and drone launches towards Israel. This comes right after the Israeli military launched preemptive strikes in Lebanon after detecting preparations for a large-scale attack by the Hezbollah groups on Israel. Hezbollah says its attack is an initial response to the top commander's killing. We're talking about Fuad Shukr, who was killed last month. The militant group has said that they began an air attack with a large number of drones targeting deep into Israel. Hezbollah militants have also targeted enemy positions and barracks and Iron Dome platforms with rockets. It fired more than 320 Katyusha rockets targeting 11 military bases in northern Israel. With this, Hezbollah says that they have completed the first phase. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has declared a 48-hour state of emergency across the country. Gallant also briefed his U.S. counterpart on the strike, saying that they are closely monitoring the developments. U.S. President Joe Biden has directed U.S. officials to communicate with Israel, and national security spokesperson has reassured that U.S. will keep supporting Israel's right to defend itself. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is currently holding a security cabinet meeting that is underway as of now. Further, Israel's Ben Gurion Airport have delayed departing flights and redirected arrivals to other airports. Flights have now been resumed. Well, this comes just after the Israeli Defense Forces warned Israelis to expect incoming missiles and drones launched by Hezbollah. And well, for more on this, we're now being joined by Charles David Frelich from Tel Aviv. He's a former Deputy National Security Advisor in Israel, currently Adjunct Associate Professor of Political Science, Columbia University in the city of New York. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, sir. Now, Israel has launched preemptive strikes in Lebanon, and now Hezbollah has announced large-scale launches towards Israel. While we've seen Hezbollah and Israel trading fires on a daily basis, how significant is this escalation? Do you see this as an initial phase of a broader attack by Iran and its proxies?
Well, I think, first of all, events are changing by the minute as we speak. The Hezbollah attack, which was prevented, was apparently much, much larger than actually, or intended to be much, much larger than the one that took place. And the Israeli Air Force succeeded in destroying a very, very large number of their launchers. So things could have been much worse. And this may have been part of a Hezbollah and actually Hamas plan to try and draw Israel into a wider regional conflict. And if that had happened, of course, no one knows where it ends. But this is, look, Israel's north has become a no man's land in the last 10 months since the war in Gaza started, because Hezbollah has been firing time and time again, and the entire civilian population was forced to leave. So this is a situation which is untenable. Israel can't allow it. And I hope that this current round, I hope it doesn't escalate too much, but I hope it does enough so that the people in the north can go home, and so we can then have a prolonged period of calm on the northern border.
Right. News just coming in that Israel's foreign minister, Israel Katz, has just released a statement. He says Israel does not seek a full-scale war, but will act according to all the developments on the ground. I want to seek your assessment at this point of time that there's a 48-hour emergency announced in Israel, while there's a cabinet meeting also underway headed by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What more can you tell us as to what is happening in Israel right now?
Well, there are intensive efforts to try and assess whether what Hezbollah claims to be is just phase one, If indeed it is phase one of an ongoing attack, maybe, hopefully not. They were clearly deeply surprised by the preemptive action, which took place probably minutes from the time that they intended to launch. So that there is really, it's clear that they are deeply penetrated from an intelligence perspective, and that the preemptive attack was extremely successful. Now, that's true up to this minute. We don't know what will happen. And so the cabinet will be trying to decide what Israel's next steps should be. There are two things here to take into account. One is that Sinwar, the head of Hamas, has been dreaming since last October 7th of turning this into a regional war, of drawing Hezbollah and Iran directly into the war, because, of course, that greatly eases the pressure on him and greatly, vastly increases the pressure on Israel. The other question is what impact this may have on the hostage negotiations and the potential for ceasefire on the Gaza front. I would say short-term postponement, long-term it could have beneficial effects.
Right. Also, you do mention of how they want to contain the ongoing war. How serious is the situation right now? Because U.S. President Joe Biden has said that he is monitoring the situation very closely. Meanwhile, the Joint Chief of Staff is also, of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff is also in Israel at this point of time. How do you assess all of these issues?
Well, it's a hair trigger situation. It can escalate big time at any moment. At this moment, northern Israel is not quiet. There are some alerts. Some rockets have continued to be fired, but not. It's basically been pretty quiet in the last couple of hours. Flights from the international airport have been resumed. I'm sitting here in my home just outside Tel Aviv. The sun is out. Things are calm, and life is continuing. People are going to work, but it can change any second.
Right. Do we risk a miscalculation here at this point of time with both the sides, Israel and Hezbollah, perhaps having some red lines laid? Do you think that it can be contained?
Well, I think it depends on the assessment that Hezbollah makes now, whether they really want to continue with a phase two or phase three, whatever. I think that they were deeply surprised by what happened. They expected to be able to launch a major attack, and apparently they were trying to hit strategic military targets both in northern Israel and in the Tel Aviv area, and there are a number of very sensitive targets in the area. And that was foiled. So we have to see what they decide to do. Now, of course, there's always the danger of miscalculation. And you may remember Mr. Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah's famous statement after the 2006 war, where he said, if I had known that the Israelis would respond as firmly as they did, I wouldn't have started the war. So, yes, of course, there's always a danger of miscalculation.
Also, sir, the Lebanese group said that the first phase of its retaliatory attack that has been completed on Israel at this point of time. Are you anticipating more attacks, perhaps from Iran or its proxies?
Well, the question is how much this escalates. Of course, Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy. It's the number one Iranian proxy. And so we've already seen a major attack against them. If the others stay quiet, Israel has no interest in intentionally widening the war. On the other hand, if they fire, if the Houthis, for example, fire, well, Israel hit them pretty hard a couple of months ago. It may have to do so again. There's the danger of Iran's Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria opening fire. If they do, Israel will have to respond. I don't think Israel has any interest in widening this war. But if it's forced to do so by Hezbollah, we'll see.
Right. Also talk to us about how Israel is now fighting multiple battles. Its ongoing war with Hamas, the Houthis, and now also with Hezbollah. How do you see Israel navigating all of this?
Well, I think very carefully, and it's been doing so carefully since the war broke out in October. These are this is a war. These are wars that are being forced on Israel. Okay, it was Hamas that attacked on October 7th, and it was Hezbollah that opened fire the next day on the 8th, and which has been continuing to do so throughout, basically on a daily basis. And sometimes in recent weeks, we've had dozens of rockets fired in Israel every day, and Israel's response was quite limited. Israel doesn't want this to expand. On the other hand, Hezbollah is an infinitely greater threat to Israel than Hamas is. It is thought to have a rocket arsenal of something like 150,000 rockets, some of them long range, some of them precise, so that they can hit any specific target, let's say in the greater Tel Aviv area, and other sensitive target. At some point, I believe that we will have no choice but to have a big round with them to put an end to this threat so that people can go back to their homes in the north, so that we can then have peace and quiet. And there is a danger that this could escalate to a direct confrontation with Iran. We'll certainly hope that that doesn't happen. But on the other hand, Iran enjoys supplying all of its proxies with weapons, but it sits back and enjoys peace and quiet. Well, I don't know that they should continue to enjoy impunity forever.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the show with your insights. We'll, of course, be closely monitoring the situation in West Asia.
Thank you.